Life now is much easier and respects fundamental human dignity, but in the past, those born different weren't so fortunate. From the 18th through the 19th century, people with unusual appearances or rare conditions were often treated as curiosities rather than individuals. Many were shunned by society, while others found themselves displayed in traveling circuses, where their lives became a public spectacle. In this video, we revisit 15 remarkable performers once branded as freaks, whose lives reveal both the cruelty and fascination of an era long past. Number 15. Willie Camper, Memphis Giant. Giselle. Willie Camper was born in 1924 near Memphis, and this guy was billed as a giant before he was even a man. Advertisements stretched him to 8.5 feet tall, likely showman's exaggeration, though he was still towering by any measure. His frame landed him with Wallace Brothers' Circus and Bantley's American shows, where crowds flocked to stare at the Memphis Giant. Life on the road promised wonder, but it proved short. In 1943, while performing in Martinez, Willie collapsed and died of a heart attack. And that was the end. He was only 20 years old. For a man hyped as impossibly big, his story was heartbreakingly brief. His obituary read like a circus act itself, inflated claims, a showman's license, and mystery about his real height. Yet those who saw him remembered awe, not numbers. Willie Camper lived fast, under lights and banners, his presence magnified by promotion. The Memphis Giant is remembered not for inches, but for the brief spark he cast across the midway. He was a very kind gentleman. Number 14. Vivian Wheeler. Vivian came into this world in 1948 with intersex traits. Doctors chose to remove her male organs as an infant, raising her as female. But Wheeler carried a family trait from her mother and grandmother, a heavy beard. As a child, she appeared in sideshows, her whiskers displayed as spectacle. Later, she tried to shave, marry, and live quietly, but her relationships faltered. She had 2 children, both delivered by cesarean section due to her bone structure, and both were later placed for adoption. By the 1980s, she returned to the stage under the name Melinda Maxey, her beard grown long and commanding. Guinness records recognized her repeatedly for having the world's longest female beard, ranging from 11 to 17 inches. In 2010, her life made global headlines when her biological son tracked her down. The story splashed across papers. Adopted son discovers his mother to be a bearded lady. Vivian Wheeler remains an enduring sideshow legend, her beard not just curiosity, but identity reclaimed. Number 13. Noah Orr, the Ohio Giant. Noah Orr was born in 1836 in Ohio, destined to tower over almost everyone he met. Standing 7 feet 3 in his stocking feet, he looked closer to 9 feet in his military boots and hat, a detail promoters leaned on heavily. In the 1850s, Orr joined P.T. Barnum's American Museum, his bulk and gentle nature making him a natural attraction. He toured Europe and the United States, advertised as the Ohio Giant, his frame both a curiosity and a symbol of strength. In later years, he joined the Lilliputian Opera Company, a troupe of little people performing Jack the Giant Killer. The irony of the tallest man surrounded by the smallest was a promoter's dream. Audiences laughed, marveled, and paid. Yet off stage, Orr was remembered as a man of kindness, not bravado. He died in 1882 in his hometown of Marysville, Ohio, where his grave still marks him as a giant. His story stands as one of Barnum's most enduring human wonders. Number 12. The Brothers Magri. The Magri brothers were famous Italian little people of the 19th century whose careers spanned the circus world. Count Primo Magri, a.k.a. Count Rosebud, stood just 2 feet 8 inches tall and became the second husband of Lavinia Warren, widow of the famous General Tom Thumb. His brother, whose name varied between Giuseppe and Ernesto, was billed as Baron Magri, or Baron Littlefinger. Together, they created a unique act that combined charm, wit, and the novelty that fascinated 19th-century audiences. Count Primo and Lavinia toured internationally for many years, performing for royalty and commoners alike. Eventually, the couple retired and settled in Middleborough, Massachusetts, where they opened a roadside tourist attraction that welcomed curious visitors for decades. Behind the glitter of the stage, however, their lives reflected resilience. Though defined by their stature in public, they carved their own space in history, balancing love, showmanship, and survival in an era where difference was both exploited and celebrated. Number 11. Before Blaine, Blondini. Michael Costello, a.k.a. the Amazing Blondini, crafted a stage name blending Blondine, the tightrope legend, with Houdini, the master escape artist. Born literally on a fairground in Ireland, his life seemed destined for spectacle. His mother worked as a fortune teller, while his father was a strongman. Even his sister performed as a trapeze artist until tragedy struck, claiming her life. Blondini launched his own act at just 13, branding himself the world's youngest sword swallower. Early on, he toured with a medicine show before building a repertoire that included fire-eating, bed-of-nails stunts, escapology, and feats of strength. His flair for the dramatic led to public demonstrations that stunned audiences worldwide. He famously blew himself up inside a coffin, hauled an automobile using only his teeth, and once remained buried alive for 78 astonishing days. Long before David Blaine's endurance stunts, Blondini had already pushed human limits, blending danger, artistry, and sheer bravado into unforgettable performances. Number 10. Princess Nellie and Major Stanley Jober. Stanley Jober, born in Warsaw in 1883, came to America and built a career from his stature, estimated at anywhere from 3 to 4 feet tall. He was paired with Nellie Frances Way, 30 inches tall and gifted with both a violin and a sewing needle. Together, they became Princess Nellie and Major Stanley Jober, a married act with music, wit, and spectacle. They worked the Otis Smith Circus, the Mighty Doris Cole, Francis Ferrari Show, and dozens of fairs across the country. Touring meant long days on the road, often spent in their specially customized truck that doubled as home. The Depression ended much of their stage work, but they settled in Waterford, Connecticut, into a miniature house measuring just 10 by 30 feet. Nellie passed in 1941, Stanley in 1958. Their names are faint now, but for years they were fixtures of America's traveling shows, performers who turned difference into livelihood and carved a life together from spectacle. Number 9. The World's Smallest Mother. Few stage names capture the imagination like Doletta Boykin, born Dolly Dodd. Standing just over 3 feet tall, her name, Doletta, evoked the image of a tiny living doll. Originally from Quincy, Illinois, she married fellow little person Major Boykin, proudly taking his surname. Doletta was deeply proud of her 2 full-sized children, born via cesarean section, often showcasing them in publicity photographs that contrasted their size with her diminutive figure. Audiences adored her as the world's smallest mother, and she became a beloved sideshow performer. After Major Boykin's passing, Doletta remarried, this time to Cherokee Buck, a 6-foot-tall trick roper who had left the bearded Lady Baroness de Barksey for her. The unusual pairing fascinated the public, but it also reflected Doletta's magnetism and spirit. She continued working in circuses and sideshows throughout her life. By the time of her death in Joplin, Missouri, at age 67, she remained a cherished figure of circus lore. Now, guys, let's move to Number 8. The White Giantess of Massachusetts. Harriet Big Hattie. Bowen was one of New England's most famous circus attractions, billed as the White Giantess of Massachusetts. Born in Fairhaven, Massachusetts, near Buzzards Bay, Hattie reportedly reached a peak weight of 783 pounds, making her a formidable presence in sideshows and traveling circuses. She appeared with the Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey Circus, as well as in the Wild West extravaganzas of Buffalo Bill and Pawnee Bill. Dime museums across the country also featured her, from New York's Bowery to St. Louis. Despite the odd emphasis on white in her billing, Hattie's fame came from her sheer size and commanding presence. Audiences flocked to marvel at her, yet her life offstage was less glamorous. But performing required a lot of endurance, and travel often strained her health. A rare surviving photograph taken just before her death shows a woman both weary and proud. Though her life was cut short at 50, Big Hattie remains a striking figure in circus history. Number 7. Mortado, the human fountain. Mortado remains one of the strangest sideshow performers of the early 20th century, though very little is known about his life. A German soldier during World War I, his true name and exact birth or death dates are lost to history. First appearing in the press in 1928, he was billed as a Hindu fakir and stunned audiences with holes drilled into his hands and feet. At first, he threaded objects like knitting needles through them, but soon created his most famous routine, pumping water through the wounds, earning the title Human Fountain. Berlin audiences were fascinated, and Mortado expanded his act with crucifixion stunts, allowing himself to be nailed to a cross. By 1930, he was performing at Coney Island's Dreamland Circus sideshow before vanishing from records in 1932 after announcing new plans for the 1933 World's Fair. Whether a victim of the Nazis, an accident, or his own act, his fate remains a complete mystery. Number 6. Baron Pauci. Peppino Magro, better known as Baron Pauci, was born in Sicily in 1894 and promoted as the world's smallest perfect man. At only 15 inches tall in his youth, he gained early notoriety when he survived an earthquake, his small body shielded beneath rubble. Coming to America, he joined the Ringling Brothers and later became a star of Coney Island's Dreamland Circus sideshow. For over 15 years, Baron Pauci entertained audiences with both his stature and his bold personality. Unlike many performers defined solely by appearance, he cultivated a reputation for style, indulging in flashy clothes, alcohol, racetracks, and women. His quick wit and brash humor, however, eventually led to clashes with management and cost him jobs. In 1931, he married Mavis Lane, a 5-foot-tall woman, though their relationship soured due to his constant flirting. By the mid-1930s, Pauci returned to Ringling Brothers, finishing his career as both a spectacle and a man who lived life unapologetically large. Number 5. Lazarus and Joannes Baptista Colloredo. Lazarus and Joannes, born in Genoa in the early 1600s, were among the earliest conjoined twins recorded in Europe. Lazarus was fully formed, living a mostly normal life, while Joannes, his parasitic twin, protruded from his torso, undeveloped, unable to move or speak. Together they toured courts and fairs, performing before kings and queens, including Charles I and Henrietta of England. Lazarus was charismatic, known to father several children, while Joannes was often hidden under a cloak in public. Yet the smaller twin carried unexpected importance. When Lazarus killed a man after being mocked, he faced execution. But judges hesitated. Killing Lazarus would mean killing Joannes, who had committed no crime. The paradox saved him. Bound together, one living through strength, the other through silence, they became both spectacle and mystery. Their story is remembered as one of history's most haunting curiosities, a reminder of how difference, however exploited, could alter even the reach of law and justice. Number 4. Madame de Vere, longest bearded lady. Madame de Vere stood out in circus history for possessing the longest beard ever recorded on a female performer, an extraordinary 14 inches. Her early life is murky, with conflicting reports placing her birth in Kentucky sometime during the 1840s or 1850s, and even her first name varies between Mary and Jane. Married to her manager, J.W. de Vere, she entered the spotlight in 1884 with appearances at Huber's Museum in New York and with Sells Brothers' Circus. Later, she toured widely, joining the Campbell Brothers in 1906 and Yankee Robinson in 1908. Wherever she went, her striking appearance drew curious crowds, and her husband ensured she remained a profitable attraction. In 1912, while traveling with the Patterson shows, she fell ill while passing through Ulwine, Iowa. According to local papers, her life ended there, closing the career of one of the most remarkable bearded ladies ever to grace America's sideshows. Number 3. Van Tuyl Mack, the Ohio Fat Boy. In the late 1850s, Van Tuyl became one of Barnum's featured curiosities. Billed as the Ohio Fat Boy, the Giant Baby, and the Infant Lambert, after the famously obese Daniel Lambert of England, Mack amazed audiences with his enormous size at such a young age. By the age of 7, he was reported to weigh 257 pounds, with thighs measuring 36 inches around. Though presented as a marvel, his size clearly placed a heavy toll on his health. Sadly, Van Tuyl's life ended just a few years later. In March 1861, the Richmond Daily Dispatch published a grim account of his passing in New York while exhibiting at Barnum's Museum. His body, weighing 600 pounds including coffin, was shipped home by rail, labeled simply, "One Fat Boy, Dead." While his story was brief, he remains one of the earliest tragic examples of Barnum's fascination with human extremes. Number 2. Middlebush Giant. Arthur James Cayley, better known under Barnum's fabricated stage name, Colonel Routh Goshen, became known worldwide as the Middlebush Giant. Though Barnum promoted him with colorful tales, born either on the Isle of Man in 1827 or in Jerusalem in 1837, the truth was obscured by exaggeration. Promoted as standing 7 feet 11 inches and weighing 620 pounds, his real height was closer to 7 feet 5 inches, comparable to modern basketball stars. Cayley's imposing frame and Barnum's flair for invention made him one of the era's most memorable giants. He traveled widely under Barnum's management, attracting crowds fascinated by both his enormous size and the tall tales woven around him. Eventually, he settled in Middlebush, New Jersey, where he lived out his final years. Known locally as the Middlebush Giant, he died in 1889 and was buried there, leaving behind a legacy as one of Barnum's most enduring attractions. Number 1. Peter Robinson. Peter Robinson, born in Springfield in 1874, lived in a body that weighed less than 60 pounds. His skeletal frame became his livelihood, earning him the title, the Human Skeleton. Rarely seen alone, Robinson often appeared beside his wife, Bunny Smith, a fat lady weighing nearly 470 pounds. Together, they embodied the old Jack Sprat rhyme, a spectacle of opposites that promoters loved. Robinson began performing in the 1890s at Coney Island, later joining larger circuses like Ringling Brothers. His career reached its most unsettling peak in 1932 when he appeared in Todd Browning's film Freaks. The role fixed him in popular memory, his thin frame unsettling viewers long after the credits rolled. Off-stage, Robinson lived an ordinary rhythm, married life, endless travel, and constant work. Advertisements often exploited his image, pairing him against bunnies, but it kept him working for decades. He remains remembered as a man whose very body became performance, a living symbol of contrast. If you've enjoyed this video, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you very soon.